The world of Cyberpunk feels empty, despite having everything and so much of it. I swear every time I play this game, it leaves me with a melancholic dread that increases with each new playthrough. The thing is, I used to think about what the future for humans would be like. I'd be lying if I didn't say flying cars were the first thing I thought of, but I imagined a bright future where technology had solved all of our problems, where we had the tools to connect with anyone, anywhere. Medicine could cure anything. Humanity would have conquered scarcity and suffering. I really thought that if we just advanced far enough, built enough, innovated enough, that we would create a utopia. Then I read The Time Machine by H.G. Wells and I played Cyberpunk 2077, and I realized that, it's likely that we'll have a lot of those things, if not all. And yet, despite that, I also had to acknowledge that the future I envisioned, the one built on technological progress, didn't guarantee human progress. And Cyberpunk 2077 exemplifies this ad nauseum, a game that is heralded as probably one of the best worlds gamers jump into and never want to leave because of how real it feels. It represents a bleak but ultimately probable future for you and me, except by the time that the real 2077 comes around, I'll probably be dead. But the in-game world is an exuberant dystopia where nobody owns anything and they're all happy. It's a reality devoid of substance, but in that void, it is filled to the brim with superficiality and, in effect, emptiness and depression. Night City should be a paradise. So why is it so lonely? Neural implants that bypass language barriers, cybernetic enhancements that make you stronger and faster, pillars of light stabbing skyward. Yes, there are also flying cars. Technology so advanced, at least to me, it borders on magic. The kind of stuff that we see in concept art and say, God, I wish I could live there. Except you don't wish that you could live there. Not once you understand that Night City is one of the most soul-crushing places ever created in fiction. It's a world where everyone is connected, but no one is. Where every body is enhanced, but nobody is whole. We have this amazing technology and it is so profoundly, devastatingly sad, unbearably hollow. I contemplate if our own world will end up being the same eventually. I think that the corporations also play a definitive role in all of this, but we'll talk about them soon. Night City is filled with people. V, Jackie, two mercenaries chasing the big leagues, hoping to get drinks named after them while deep down knowing that they're probably just going to be another statistic. David and Lucy, basically kids clawing for survival in a city that sees them as disposable, yet they fall in love in a hopeless place. Songbird and Reed, operatives trapped in cycles of betrayal and service, their identities eroded by the systems they're chained to. And others like Panam, Judy, Johnny Silverhand, Takemura, Victor, Rogue, they're all trying to carve out meaning in a world built to strip it away. Beneath the neon and chrome, the city is a graveyard of genuine connection, ruin and desolation, and when you look back at people like Jackie, David, and V, you begin to view them like different gravestones in the same place, each one showing how that graveyard was built one person at a time. Jackie grows up under the monolithic towers that never let him forget how small he is, and that kind of dominating skyline shapes a person until they start to believe that being noticed is the only way to matter. He wants to become a legend, to have the eddies and rep that comes with it. But he wants those things because Night City teaches people to want them. The city shows the high life on every screen. The people whisper about legends, individuals who are respected because they went out in a blaze of glory. Anyone growing up influenced around that kind of pressure starts to build their identity around trying to reach it. Jackie never trusts the corporations, but he still absorbs the dreams that they broadcast. The corporations are Night City. Corpos use those dreams to keep the population moving, and it fills every district with the idea that somebody can rise above their situation if they just work hard enough. Jackie's essentially a product of a controlled environment curated by the corporations. Jackie dies reaching for that dream. He and V take on a job that promises to change everything for them, stealing a chip from Arasaka, the big score. the job that would finally place them on the map. Instead, Jackie bleeds out in a cab, with his dreams slipping away while the towers still stand overhead, indifferent. Worse than that, they actively look down on everybody else like they're filth. But Jackie, for all of his exceptional greatness, becomes what Night City turns most people into, another body. Saka, Militech, Kang Tao, Biotechnica, more than companies, they're nations. They have private armies, they write laws, they own districts. National governments do still exist in name, but they're husks. The new United States of America, or the NUSA, is the surviving federal government after the collapse, and they have their military, but their power is limited, and they rely on megacorporation partnerships. But let me explain for those who aren't familiar with how this world works. In Cyberpunk, huge companies, megacorporations, control almost everything. They have more power than governments, and regular people simply try to survive under them. Working for a corporation basically replaces being part of a country. It's like living under a company's rule instead of a government one, almost like a form of corporate feudalism. Feudalism was a system where powerful people owned everything, and everybody else had to just serve under them if they wanted to survive. Cyberpunk builds off of that idea and pushes it into a high-tech future. I got some of this from an article by a writer named David Shapiro. He talks about problems living in a world run by the 1%, and I think it contributes to how the 99% are divided and more easily conquered in that way. He says, Cyberpunk stories are warnings, cautionary tales that show what happens when money and big businesses run the world with no rules to keep them in check. He ties it back to the 1980s when profit-first thinking started to dominate. That mindset shaped the kind of world that Cyberpunk represents, where the rich wage war and the poor die. The main takeaway is the ideology behind Night City. The corpos sell a dream, work for them, upgrade yourself for them, prove yourself to them, and you'll elevate above everything holding you down. They promise that you're special, and you'll ascend from the chaos of the streets. But to me, when I think about that, it feels more like the dream is actually you'll fall from the streets and land in the stars. And that's because they don't say the quiet part out loud, that the dream isn't designed for you to reach. It's engineered to rip everything from you while you chase it. That is what stands out about the corporate structure in this world. It presents exploitation as opportunity. It presents servitude as freedom. You're not an employee, you're a contractor, an independent merc. It sounds like freedom. Tastes like it too. You choose your jobs, you set your rates, you build your reputation. You are free in the way a fish is free in a tank. Technically mobile, practically trapped. It's like YouTubers. Most content creators are free in that we don't really have a boss per se. How much I make from Google depends so little on what I do though, compared to what the ad companies bid for or what YouTube takes, their percentage I mean, and how much of my audience is interested in what I have to say. So yeah, I am free in the sense that I don't really have to do anything if I don't want to, but also I'm still beholden to others. Or at least I would be if I didn't have other streams of income. YouTube is my passion and I do it for fun, not for money. Which is also why I turn down a lot of sponsors, because they don't align with who I am. However, a certain Ripper Doc understands this better than most. Not the being a YouTuber part, the living under corporate domination one. Victor. He has been in Night City long enough to see the pattern. I'd argue that the Ripper from Edgerunners thought the same thing regarding David. But Vic is the one the game shows you up close. He's seen this play out so many times. Dreamers come in with optimism and ambition. Oh, you and me, Vic, we're gonna do it, you and me. Then comes the slow realization that greatness really is this esoteric thing reserved for the elite. Vic sees it constantly. No matter how much rep or eddies one makes, nothing will ever pierce the veil that separates lowborns from the upper echelons of society. We will never be allowed up there, but they love to watch us try. David from Edgerunners learns this the hard way. He's just the street kid trying to make it through a world that doesn't leave room for people like him. And even though he's smart and he cares deeply about his mother, none of that shields him from how harsh Night City really is. His mother was also victim to the machine. She believed that in order to have happiness and success, that you would have to go through the corporate route. So that is why she worked herself to death tirelessly so that she could afford to send him to Arasaka Academy. He did get in on a scholarship and he tried to move upward in a system that was built to grind people down, but then his mother dies in a moment of violence that nobody notices, and he's left with her debt, but also military cyberware, and this would change the trajectory of his life. The Sandevistan becomes the one thing that feels like a way forward. He joins a crew, falls in love with Lucy, installs more chrome and more upgrades, and starts moving with a confidence that almost convinces him that he can break free of the world around him. Just like everyone else, David is special. But he just doesn't grasp that there are no living legends. Lucy kept trying to get him to stop trying to fly higher and higher, but it's just like Aristotle once said, the greatest crimes issue from a desire for excess, not from necessity. Lucy watches David's wings burn off, and she is with him as he falls. The dream that she had for him, for both of them, gone. She knew that David could have had a happy life. Both are familiar with the loneliness and isolation that permeates throughout Night City, but David was a product of his environment, leaving Lucy alone on the moon, a dream that she and David might have shared. The world of Cyberpunk 2077 feels depressing because the corporate structure positions itself as the only place that people can exist. Trying to fight it feels pointless, and surviving inside of it means accepting compromises that gradually eat away at you. Jackie's death, David's downfall, Lucy's attempts to leave because she knew that the only way to make it out was to leave Night City. All of the characters' lives and deaths reflect the different ways people respond to the same truth. This is a version of capitalism functioning exactly the way it was built to function. The constant push for survival and self-improvement drains people, and in that chase for stability or purpose, you end up drifting further and further away from yourself. When the world measures worth only in terms of ability, the idea of having an identity outside of utility becomes hard to hold on to. And if you haven't played the game, that's what Keanu Reeves, or at least the version that we see of him, consistently rants about. Being against the system and rising against the machine that deprives everyone. It also makes me think about what it means to replace parts of yourself. If you could trade your eyes for ones that help you see in the dark, or whatever cool thing you can think of, would you actually give up your organic ones, the eyes you were born with? What does that choice look like when it isn't a question, but a responsibility you have to take on just to function in the world around you? Because the thing is, a lot of people in Night City get chromed out because living without enhancements is, well, it's hard not to. And that's because there are all kinds of pressures that push people into changing themselves to keep up. Even in our world today, you can see small hints, I guess they're becoming bigger and bigger, of that direction. Neuralink is being tested, meta glasses are a thing, and even though they're nothing like Cyberpunk's upgrades yet, you can feel the world's shift towards technology. In fact, my wife and I love my wife, we were watching a video of this robot that is coming out that, like, it'll just help you around the house. It'll do chores for you. An AI robot. That's insane. V's entire story feels like watching someone dissolve in real time, and it's a reminder that identity isn't solid. It's not this steady thing that we act like it is. It's more fragile, held together by whatever story we're telling ourselves at the moment about who we are and who we're trying to become. The idea sits in the back of my mind every time I think about the relic. V has this biochip with Johnny Silverhand's consciousness on it, and instead of some loud, dramatic takeover, it's a gradual erasure of a soul killer. Johnny's memories bleed into V's. His emotional reactions slip into places where V's used to be. Sometimes he just straight up takes over V's body. And, maybe I'm going crazy, but I swear in the DLC I could also hear his ever so slight undertones of his voice whenever V talked. J.G. Ballard once wrote that the major developments of the future would not happen out in space, but inside of us, in what he called inner space. And I didn't really understand what that meant until now. Citizens of Night City slowly become alien to themselves, shaped by technologies that they think they're controlling when really those technologies are reshaping them. It's all quiet subtraction happening on both the individual and structural level. We all get overridden, just like how Johnny overwrites V. Atom Smasher feels like the endpoint of a question that Cyberpunk 2077 keeps on asking. What happens when you push the idea of self-improvement past anything recognizable and treat the human body as something temporary, optional, or even disposable? I mean, he went full Borg, no Organic, so we have to ask if there's anything left of the same Atom Smasher who was once just a baby. There is hardly any human essence in him left. That calling him a person feels more like a technicality. Most of what he used to be has been replaced with chrome, and whatever organic material he still carries is just enough to keep the machine running. The NC boogeyman of legend, and he's practically just a robot at this point. Night City sees him as the ideal, perfection, and he himself believes he is superior, probably a result of cyberpsychosis, but also he is a stark reminder that being at the top is lonely. And even this living legend is controlled by Arasaka. Takemura represents another side of this transformation. He served Arasaka for most of his life, and when you meet him, the corporation's already turned on him. Watching him move through that loss is pitiful. He was betrayed by Arasaka, and he is confronting the realization that his sense of self was entirely built inside of a structure that no longer wants him. His values and purpose come from the corporation, and when that foundation disappears, he's left trying to figure out what now. For example, what if you served in the military for most of your life and then one day, for no real good reason, you got discharged and left with nothing? Imagine the isolation one would feel after having given your country everything, only for them to betray you, to kick you to the curb. But Panam shows you a version of loyalty that doesn't feel manufactured or tied to transactions, and watching her and the Aldecaldos show that you can have happiness and connection with the ones that you hold dearest. She fights for her clan because they're hers, and that community bond isn't rooted in what she gains from them, but in the sense of belonging that they give one another. Think of it like family the way it is supposed to feel. Something chosen and reinforced through shared duty and desire to support, rather than obligation. Victor does something similar every time he refuses payment from somebody who can't afford his help, or, he works something out with them, even when it puts him in a more difficult position financially. He does it because he remembers a time when people weren't assigned a value based on what they could offer in return. The problem is this warmth. None of it lasts in Cyberpunk. The world breaks you apart before you can create meaningful and lasting change. And again, it circles back to the technology that is embedded into the foundation of society by the corporations, just like how phones, the internet, and cars are in the real world. They are the staples of modern times that make it so that we can't really function optimally without these things. In the lore of Cyberpunk, there's something called cyberpsychosis, when the gap between what your body was meant to handle and what your chrome lets you do gets too wide. As a result, the mind struggles to hold everything together, and the person you were starts being crushed under the weight of what you've become. Night City is built around that effect. It's another dead end for those who don't stay within their lane, or for those who fly too high. So now, to keep in line, you have the version of yourself that you show on the street, you've got the one that you use with the corpos, the one that is tied to your cyberware, and the one that is still connected to your body. Eventually, the question of who you really are stops making sense because every version is influenced by a different set of pressures and expectations. Once more, you are alone and disconnected from yourself. But that led me into thinking about how long somebody could live in that state, feeling hollow, disjointed, and undefined, and whether eternity would make that feeling worse. I think so. I mean, what do you think? Do you think Johnny or Alt's consciousnesses feel tortured? Can they feel that? Immortality sounds appealing at first, but personally I would get bored and I would lose my mind, never running out of time. Night City reached that point for a select few, offering forms of eternity through digitized consciousnesses and engineered longevity, something incredible in theory, but devastating when you look at what it does to people who embrace it. Empty eternity doesn't really look all that great. Phantom Liberty circles around that same promise of salvation, Songbird is somebody who should have been saved a long time ago before the events of the expansion, but every lifeline she is offered comes with a price that she can never really pay off. Her body is breaking under the strain of the tech inside of her and the damage from the Black Wall, and instead of being treated like a patient, she is treated like a resource. They exploited and worked her while she was alive, and in death, they want to take her mind and continue to work her even more. The NUSA keeps holding out on the idea of a cure as a reward for one more mission, one more sacrifice, one more step into danger that only she can survive. The technology to save her might exist, but it's owned by the same power that destroyed her in the first place. Reed is caught in the same similar trap. Even though it looks different on the surface, his entire identity is tied to the idea of service and of doing hard things for the sake of state. Night City keeps pushing him into situations where the only way he knows how to live is by following orders that eat away at him. No matter which ending you reach, he is somebody who has given so much of himself to an institution that he doesn't know what or how to be without. The salvation he is offered isn't peace or healing, it's just the chance to continue working, and Reed believes that, this time is going to be the time that the outcome will justify the cost. Both Songbird and Reed show another side of Night City's future, a world where even the possibility of being saved is used as leverage, where hope turns into a tool that keeps people in place instead of setting them free. But no matter what, both are left alone by the same company that told them they were special in the first place. This is a dystopia that has all the familiar signs of a bleak world, but the real weight doesn't come from the danger or the inequality. It comes from how completely the city is fulfilled with its own ambitions. It delivered everything in excess that people asked for, and then it showed how little those achievements do for the parts of the human experience that need depth. What struck me most while playing this again was the realization that the utopian future I used to imagine might not feel like a victory once we're there. You don't really win, because as long as you're in Night City, you're still trapped in a big cage of light.